A very good afternoon to one and all present here. I, Khushi Chaudhary, a second semester student of DME Media School, welcome you to the second edition of the world's first 10-day digital live international conference ICANN 4. The ICANN 4 is being organized by the DME Media School of Delhi Metropolitan Education in collaboration with the School of Communication and Creative Arts, Deakin University, Melbourne, Australia. ICANN 4 is supported by the Indian Council of Social Science Research. Since 2018, DME Media School is organizing the international conference ICANN. The themes for the former editions were ICANN First, India and Changing Aspects of News, ICANN Second, India Cinema and Alternate Networks, ICANN Third, Issues of Community, Agenda and News with the hashtag Conference for Change. And now ICANN 4 is here with the theme Information, Communication and Artificial Networks, and the hashtag is Communication Redefined. The four knowledge partners for ICANN 4 are KR Mangalam University, Gurugram, Haryana, Adamas University, Kolkata, Makhandal Chaturvedi National University of Journalism and Mass Communication, Bhopal, and Vigyan Prasar Government of India. ICANN 4 has also partnered with the Department of Communication and Journalism, Guwahati University as academic partner. The international partner for ICANN 4 is the Institute of International Journalism, EW Scripps School of Journalism, Ohio University, USA. Our media partner is the Policy Times. ICANN 4 has the participation of about 60 eminent scholars from 5 continents and 11 countries, namely India, South Korea, Malaysia, Singapore, Bangladesh, USA, Mexico, France, Italy, Australia, and Ghana. There are 36 live sessions, including 9 technical sessions, 3 workshops, 7 panel discussions, 3 special discussions, and 10 master classes. And now, how interesting is that all the 9 technical sessions are being chaired and co-chaired by the school, by the women scholars representing different states of the country. At DME, we have a student council called SPARK, who organizes events at DME. I extend my gratitude to them as well. Journalism at DME is the official newsletter of DME Media School. This fortnightly publication covers all the major activities happening in and out of the campus. It is the student-centric newsletter carried out entirely by them under the supervision of faculty members. DME TV is the official YouTube channel of DME where you can find the playlist related to all the sessions, lecture series, film festival, and conference. It gives me an immense pleasure to announce that we have the social media handles and links are being given in the chat box. So you can follow us on the social media handles as well. ICANN 4 will 10 days and 10 masterclasses. And I welcome you all for the first masterclass of the conference on the topic documentary filmmaking. I invite Professor Dr. Ambrish Saxena, Dean DME Media School, Director DME Studios and Production, Director International Relations at Delhi Metropolitan Education, Convener ICANN 4 to give opening remarks and inaugurate the first masterclass. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Khushi. So indeed, it's a matter of privilege that Mr. Vijay Jodha is with us today for this master class, and this happens to be the first master class of this 10-day long academic extravaganza, I should say, because the way the things have been planned for 10 days, obviously it's an academic thing, it's a research-based thing, but then we have included different kind of sessions on diverse subjects. So it will give you, and even yesterday, I mean, after the inaugural session, we had a very rich cultural performances by the students. So with academic, there is a mix of culture, there is a mix of media, there's a mix of film. So that is how this whole thing has been conceived and planned. So I welcome Mr. Jodha in this session, and I believe that for all those students who love films or who wish to make films, whichever genre they might be interested in. But basically, if you learn the art of filmmaking, then you can choose your own area and you can develop yourself in the discipline or in the compartment of the filmmaking which you want to do. So that is all from me in this session, and we all are waiting for Mr. Jodha to take up the whole session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now I would like to welcome our expert, Mr. Vijay S. Jodha, who is a writer, photographer, and filmmaker based in Gurgaon. He has produced 5 books and his projects have been showcased in galleries, museums, and film festivals worldwide. He has an MA in International Relations from Jawaharlal Nehru University and an MA in Film Production from New York University. He has worked with directors Ang Lee and Meera Nair. His films have been broadcast in over 200 countries and on 75 channels, including BBC, CNN, and Discovery. Vijay's projects have received over 70 honors in 24 countries, including 17 Best Director and Best Film Awards, grants from premier cinematic institutions like Sundance, Eurovision, and ITV's International, as well as philanthropic institutions like Swiss Development Agency, the Ford Foundation, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Two of Vijay's books and 4 of his films have been selected for archiving in the US Library of Congress. 2 of his projects were listed in the Lemka Book of Records. He has also produced and directed over 30 films on a pro bono basis and has helped raise over 1.6 crore rupees for various Indian grassroots organizations. Indian Confederation of Non-Government Organizations has honored Vijay with the Media Citizen Award for using media to drive social change. We are very honored to have you, sir, as the expert for the today's masterclass. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Kushi. That was a very kind introduction of yours. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you to Dr. Saxena and Sutiji, both of them, and of course your institution, which has invited me to this really amazing, path-breaking, and such a huge event, I would say, with so many scholars from all around the world participating. What we will try to do here is focus a little bit on non-fiction cinema, which obviously occupies a huge space in the larger media ecosystem that we are all part of, the system that a lot of us youngsters like you are getting trained to become part of, either as a scholar or as a media profession. So what I have done is, the language of cinema is what I'm focusing on, and especially language of non-fiction cinema. Non-fiction would be documentaries, television programs, CSR films, environment films, NGO films, a lot of the government films, a lot of stuff we see. In fact, I would say the bulk of material that we see all around us is non-fiction. It is reality-based. So what is happening now is that over the last, I would say 30 years, with the coming of this technology in a big way, there's so many people making so many films. So how does one get to make something which stands out from that crowd? A, B, it holds up very well in the context of what is happening today. So what we are looking at is, finding new ways of telling stories. A lot of stories are obviously told before, the story like, for example, some environment disaster because of some company which is managing very bad or they polluted the area, etc. So these are things we've been seeing for a long time. But how does one find new way to tell that story to get the audience interested? And most importantly, to get the commissioning editors interested. I've got my materials, my films out there in the worldwide, about 75 stations in multiple languages. And one big reason that has gone as far as it has gone is because I have tried to use different ways of telling stories, and stories which have to be emotionally moving. Movies, cinema is an emotional medium. It has to connect. Doesn't matter whether it's a fiction or a non-fiction, comedy or any kind of serious stuff. It has to connect to the audience. If it does not, then the producers will not produce a film. TV stations will not buy your films. It will not get seen in festivals and awards, and it may just end up sitting in a box somewhere or on a hard drive as it happens now. So let us try to look at new ways of telling stories. So the very first film we'll look at is a very, very conventional kind of thing to give you a sense of how it would be. We have all seen that, just to give you an idea and to see what's important about a film like that. This is a very, very conventional film, voiceover, very straightforward shots, maybe not very exciting, but this film is a very, very valuable movie. We are seeing a very small clip of this. This is about this dentist who was running a successful practice and one fine day just lost his eyesight. And what he did was, from there, he struggled for a few years until he discovered computer-enabled in learning and all of that. And from there, he set up this NGO, and he started with 8 students. I was the one who was filming him all the way when he started out trying to help him. And what he did was that he wanted to train people in people who are visually impaired, blind people, kids from very poor families. and get them very proper jobs in medical transcription industry in the BPO world. And he had no skills, computer skills he didn't have to begin with. And second thing, he didn't have corporate soft skills, so he couldn't go out and make presentations and all those things. So what he did was he would take a film that I had made, and he would take that film, just stick it in the DVD player or a computer laptop, and for 5-10 minutes he watched that very short film. You have all these very important people, NASCOM and all the big people, big companies who had hired the people he had trained. So that testimonial videos, they helped them sponsor this guy, they helped them partner with him and all of that. And from 8 people, he managed to, in less than 10 years, he has trained and placed more than 20,000 impaired people. So what happens is this, that it has made this whole process very, very successful. And that film has played a valuable role in that larger process. He charges no fee whatsoever. He works in all verticals now, not medical transcript, but hospitality, radio, and all kinds of things. And impairment also is concerning every kind of industries, so that is something he's done, in which a film has played an important role. Obviously the bigger role has been other people. His own role is a very important part of it, but cinema helps in that whole process. So let's look at another film, how films make a difference and how they are made differently. This one is a film done by Mike Pandey many years back, but it still holds up very well, and I'll tell you why. We'll look at it first. So friends, you can see that how a film like this has actually made a difference on the ground. People were not even aware of it, that you had whale sharks in India. They became aware. Second thing is organization which was involved in changing the lifestyle of the fishermen. Mike Pandey himself and his wife, they are involved in setting up some kind of NGO to create alternative livelihood options for some of these people. And most importantly, whale sharks were brought under the Wildlife Act. So that was something which it's managed to do. And this film got the award at Bristol. You have in Bristol, England, you have Wildscreen Awards. And they have this award called Green Panda, which is the Bristol Wildscreen Award, which is called the Green Oscar also. It's the highest achievement in environment and conservation cinema. Now, I'll tell you something very interesting about this, because what happens is that if you go to this festival and if you look at the top-notch documentaries dealing with environment, we have seen a lot of those ourselves, such as the BBC, David Attenborough kind of films. Now, those are called blue chip documentaries. Blue chip because they are very, very expensive to produce. They use all kinds of cutting edge equipment, very small fiber optic camera, which they can put with an earthworm inside, or they can mount a very tiny camera on top of some bird and all of that. And when it comes to making music for those films, they may be using a 50 or 100 piece philharmonic orchestra. So, the kind of money they spend, we cannot even imagine. Like, for example, Al Gore's film, which we saw, An Inconvenient Truth, very well-known film, that had a budget of about $1 million only for the publicity, only for the European market. So you can imagine the kind of money they spend and what we are trying to do here. But not surprisingly, this film got the top award at the festival in place of all those other so-called blue chip films. Reason was very simple. It was a film which was making a difference on the ground. It was changing the reality of conservation. Mike Pandey is a real great filmmaker. He's done a lot of wonderful films. He's got this Green Oscar 3 times. And each time his film has played an important role in changing law of the land, the Wildlife Act. It decided to include the vultures related film he had done. One more about called the horseshoe crab, again brought into the Wildlife Act. So things like that. And the most interesting thing I would like to tell all of you is that this film, the kind of camera that was used for making this film, obviously made a long time back, is low resolution. It is far, far inferior than the camera that all of you have in your mobile phone, in your pockets at this time. Okay, so your camera, which you have right now, as filmmakers, you always keep thinking, I wish I have this equipment and I'll make this amazing movie and all of that stuff. But reality of it is this, that if you have a great concept, if you have a control over a medium, you understand how to tell a good story using cinema, you can make a film which will go all over the world and maybe get even the top awards too. So believe you me, it is possible, and it is possible to make good films provided you have a good storytelling and a good concept in place. Okay. So this is another film we'll look now. We'll look at a small trailer actually, again about how a film can make a difference. You have seen films such as, or must have heard of a film called The Wrong Man, made by Alfred Hitchcock. And then there was another movie called Majboor with Amitabh Bachchan. And there are a few other films like that. I think Kala Pani by Devanand and so on. All these films had a common thread running to them, which was this, that an innocent person is framed needlessly and he is going to be punished, as in, for murder. He may be executed or whatever. So how an innocent person finally gets away. Why this is important is a couple of reasons. A, when this film came out, Errol Morris, the director, is coming from advertising background. And what he did was he used the process of making the film, realized that this man is actually innocent. Errol Morris, the filmmaker, was also a detective at one time. So he could use a lot of those investigation skills. He could bring them to making of the movie. And eventually, as it happened, this film helped get this man off the death row, as you can call it. So he was let free. He was let go finally. So this film actually saved a innocent person's life. So that is one way of doing it. In this case, this film was very, very important, not only for the fact that it helped save an innocent man. It was also important because it had used new elements in telling the story. As you can see, close-up of a police the red beacon, the car, police car, and all of that, close-ups of all kinds of objects, third-party material, nothing to do with the original film at all, or the documented material. So a very interesting stylized way of telling story, which was very, very annoying to a lot of the film critics at that time. They said this is not documentary, blah, blah, blah. But that has become part of cinema's language now. If you watch movies on Nat Geo and Discovery, etc., you will see they use these technique a lot now in it. So in fact, they have gone into docudrama where you have a huge portion which is reenacted using actors. So cinema has got changed in that manner. Now let's look at one more film. It's a complete film we are looking at. It's about 6 minutes long. And I want you to watch it very carefully and tell me, we'll just have a small Q&A at the end of it to see what elements is the film, what the film is all about. Yeah. So let's take a look at this. So, if we can have a short Q&A, I would like to ask people, we have about almost 100 participants, what the film was all about. Can they answer that? What do you think the film was about? Khushi, you want to answer that? What do you think the film was dealing with?
So basically poverty.
Poverty,
right? Or about the fuels that the cow dungs or these are used as a fuel.
Okay, so poverty, fuel, okay, that is the second one.
Yes,
Apart
sir.
from that, what do you think could be the other thing? Maybe somebody else can answer what else this was about. You're getting audio of other people, Shruti, or others cannot hear me at all, you think?
We can participate through chat box.
Okay.
Yes.
Anybody, what do they think of could be the other subject? Obviously, what Khushi pointed out is right. Poverty is one issue. Animal dung or waste, that could be the other issue. What else could this film be dealing with, you think? Okay, I think they're very shy too. I think, Khushi, you can answer the rest of the question. What do you think it was dealing with apart from these two things you pointed out?
So mainly about the condition of India, that poverty is very much in India, man.
Yeah, poverty is one
yes,
part,
sir.
obviously. The second thing, as you must have noticed, poverty, animal dung, that is second part.
Yes, sir.
Third thing, if you notice, the film deals with the issue of media images. It's about photography and it is about media, how they want to show poor people, especially in poor countries, how they are projected. And you also notice that for a lot of them, this is it's just an exotic setting, they are not so interested. Like, for example, these ladies are going out doing this very, very dangerous work, backbreaking work, humiliating work also. and for rest of the people it's just a photo op. So you have that as well. As I pointed out, at the very end of the film, this again, you see this whole media image. They're not paying any money to these women. They're taking pictures. They may use it. They may sell it to papers, magazines, even travel books. As you probably know, Pushkar is one of the top 100 destinations in the world for a long, long time. Those very top end must visit kind of places. It's been the subject of dozens and dozens of movies, TV programs, and certainly magazine and articles and books and all of that. But this is the first and only film dealing with this whole animal dung aspect. So something which people have totally unnoticed this. So it's focusing on that. And then, of course, because if you notice throughout the film, it's only women who are doing it. So you also have this issue of gender, that this work, you see, for example, towards the ending of it, they are doing it again, women all the way. And you see that men don't do the stuff. You see this lady is into it, but men are just doing everything else except trying to do this very difficult work. So gender, poverty, media images, tourism, tourist images, photography, and of course conservation issue. It's a very good idea. It saves trees and all of that. So that part also is there. And of course camels, and it's dealing with this wonderful setting, Pushkar Mela, that happens every year. So art, culture, religion, and a lot of other stuff is also coming into the picture. So you have about 10 different things happening. So even environment, cultural anthropology, sociology, economics, ecology, whatever. So many of issues all packed within just 6 minutes. We have done actually two versions, half an hour and 1 hour version. Steps International, which produced this movie, is a Danish South African company. So they've sold it to lots of TV stations worldwide in multiple languages. And it's a very, very commercially feasible and successful project for them. They made good money on this. They got a lot of films made dealing with poverty worldwide. This project which they have commissioned in my case was obviously focusing on this. So, and Don Atkins, at the end, the credits that you see, who's one of the producers of this project, is a Oscar-winning director, Oscar-winning producer. He made Taxi to the Dark Side, and one more person is there. So two Oscar-winning producers were involved in producing this movie. So that has not happened with Indian cinema at all. It's gone in 200 film festivals also. So it's the most widely screened and the most widely, most awarded film, you can say, fiction film out of India of all time. Yeah. So point is just that in a very short film, short duration, 5-6 minutes, you can pack in a lot of information, lot of issues, provided you do it very, very skillfully. So that is also a way of telling story. Now, if you notice in this movie, the interviews are again being done in a very, very interesting manner. Okay. And there are very few words. Again, we have a problem in India. Most of our films we make are just so wordy. It gets you very, very bored. And here they hardly have any words. Visuals, audio, especially the sound, including sounds of all the camels screaming and all of that, that is telling the whole story. So the setting, if you notice, one interview is a voiceover coming here. Partly it is shot here. This interview in one location, again, second location, third location, fourth location, fifth location, sixth location, and again 7th location, 8th location, and 9th location, and then of course she walks away. So about 10 locations to do an interview, which most of us, most filmmakers would do in one place. Okay, so it's a visual medium. Something has to happen. It cannot be boring that you see the same thing in the back. So how do you split the interview and how you create it and how you weave in, removing everything which is unnecessary. Lot of things were useful. We removed it. We have spent 1 week making this movie. We shot hours and hours of material. We could have easily made a 1 hour film also. We covered a lot of other things, but removed everything and kept only what is the bare essential. What we usually call less is more and all of that stuff. This is one way of doing it. Okay. Now let us look at, we have 3:50. So 4:30 we are wrapping up. So we'll use another kind of a way to do this. Another way to tell the story, which is using other forms. We have looked at this one way, which is live action. Supposing you are involving old and new footage, cartoons, all kinds of things. Let's look at this documentary. This is a film which incorporates, as you can see, cartoons, archival footage made, and of course, audio tapes, recordings which were done a long, long time back, and a lot of material which was very poor quality, obviously done long time back in the pre-digital era, in the analog period, and that has also been rescued and put to use here. So what happens is that multiple materials, multiple ways of telling stories, and working with the form itself, not just choosing the subject you want to make a film around, but also choosing the method, the treatment, and the style that you want to tell that story. And each story should have the freedom to tell, to be conveyed in a new way. It's no restriction at all. It has to be done in the way it was done before. So that is something that you'll have to figure out. Now, let's look at this film in which you are using not even a movie camera, you're using still images. It's a very, very interesting story. It's shot in China. Let's look at it. This, and then now this one. This is a very short film using artist drawing basically, but it's interesting to watch how it's a biopic and how it's been constructed. So, friends, this last one, as you saw, is based on a speech which actor, director Kamal Haasan had made. So that's another way, and it's a biopic running to just a few minutes. So you have his whole story in such a short time, told by the person himself, and told in the most imaginative manner by the artist. So that's another way of telling a story. All of the stuff we saw are, except for Waltz with Bashir, the second last Israeli film we saw, everything was non-fiction, documentary, using a variety of storytelling techniques and variety of treatment ideas, and of course a variety of subjects. So Shruti, should we open it to questions if anybody has anything to ask?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we can now move on to question answer session. So you can stop your screen sharing option now.
Okay. Yeah.
I can see that there are a lot of questions in our chat box already. I will be taking some of them one by one. We have a student asking a question. Michael Moore famously said, "Problems with documentaries is that they are documentaries," referring to the fact that documentaries often forget they have to make the story cinematic and interesting. So, what is your opinion on this as a filmmaker? That is it a burden for you to make documentaries much more interesting or cinematic, or is that something of a struggle that you face as a filmmaker?
The fact that you are making documentary films, so that cinema part is there. It could well be a documentary in photographs, for example, or in words also. Those are also called documentaries by some people. So photo document, or so when you're using cinema, obviously you're doing cinematically. So that is not an issue. What I was pointing out earlier as well, one has to understand and appreciate the fact that there are all kinds of films being made, serving all kinds of purposes. If you're doing a film for an NGO, they're working in some tribal area, they want to highlight something, so they already have the money to give to you to have when they're hiring you. They also have an audience waiting for that film. They also have the issue sorted out. They also have the research and data and all the other stuff in place already. So a lot of the things are already in place, so you don't have to struggle with that. And as a result, a lot of the NGO films may seem very, very unfortunately, I won't use that word loosely, but boring, But they serve a purpose. They are very interesting for the people who they are meant for. So that's how it is. But yes, when you're going out trying to pitch a project, you want it to go on TV, as I said earlier, if you want some producer to commission your project, you want it out there in the public, then you are competing against a lot of films, lot of sensibilities, and lot of other stuff which is there. And it is very crucial that you make movies not just cinematic, but something which is engaging. Film we saw just now, the last one, Kamal Haasan film, it is what cinematic? Certainly not. It's just done with artist storyboard or whatever you want to call it. But it's very, very grabbing, and it is the right length. If it was, say, 2 hours long, it would not work. So you have to figure that out. Michael Moore, when he said that, when he did his own film, the very first film he had done, Roger and Me, for example, he had a very strong and very wonderful idea, which was this, that why not have the filmmaker appearing in the film itself? So every film has filmmaker, the director appearing prominently, which is he himself. And that is the idea which was not very accepted at that time. So we broke through that. Now, a lot of films we see where the director is also seen. I have done films in which I am appearing myself. So nothing wrong with that. So language is evolving all the time. And what he did also seems a little passe now. A lot of people have done it. It's become boring. So people are trying to find some new way of doing it. So that goes on. Thank you.
We have another question that since documentary is about representing the world on screen, and as a filmmaker, what do you face any kind of ethical dilemma when representing communities, representing others? So would you like to, sir, give a comment on that?
No, I've not had that issue because you are very, very clear. Everything is above board. So you don't worry about that. At least in my case, didn't have to. That happens more with hard news or maybe some investigative kind of thing. What should you show? What you should not show? And yes, if you're doing that, most of us don't end up doing that kind of thing. Our challenge is that how do we make something which is interesting without faking anything, without lying, without misrepresentation? How do we do that? Something which will have people interested and most of all find support to make a project like that. So that dilemma part is there, but it's a very small part of the larger ball game, I would say.
We have Ananya asking you, why did you choose to tell stories in the non-fiction format? Have you ever come across a story which you thought could be told through fiction?
See, I got trained at the film school, New York University, where I went. We did everything fiction and non-fiction. So that way, there's no difference. Even now, when you're doing whatever the degree film and all of that, that was non-fiction comedy I had done. So those kind of ideas I do get. If there's an opportunity, one would do that. So I don't have any ideological issue with that at all. What I'm interested in is a film which is worth watching. It can be fiction, non-fiction, doesn't really matter. I watch all kinds of stuff and I'm sure people want to make all kinds of things too. Yeah.
One more question. Mudita is asking, like documentary is associated with the idea of truth, reality, and I mean, at the end of the day, it is still a creative expression, creative medium where the filmmaker, the script writers are also having the creative thought out of it. So how, so can filmmaking have personal biases, or should we refrain from that personal bias, or should we accept it? Can you share your thoughts on it?
I think it's impossible to make a film without a bias. All of us have it. It's only this way that, my personal bias is same as yours. So you'll not notice it at all, or vice versa. So most of the time you're working in that whole very biased environment. Let us be honest, all our films are biased one way or other. But if you are part of a certain setup where they agree with your idea, then they don't question it. It's only when you go out that it becomes more obvious. But it's impossible to make a movie without it. That's a human thing. It's after all, it's important because that is also your take. Your take as a filmmaker is different from your friend's take or somebody else's take. And that is the whole idea. So I don't see anything wrong with that. Only thing I have issue with is that if it is going, if factually incorrect and, making something up which is actually not there. So that is something you have to watch out for, or manipulation in some manner. Otherwise, it's okay. In fact, I prefer movies which have a certain take, a personal take, which may be biased one way or other. It's okay. Nothing wrong with that. When you're making a movie about a problem of some tribal community, obviously you're biased in favor of that community and not some big corporation which wants to do mining over there. That is also another bias. I'm sure they get somebody else to make a corporate film showing what a wonderful job they are doing. That will have that bias. So in itself, nothing wrong with it, I think.
Just we'll take one more question. Prateek is asking that he has an idea for a documentary. How can I start? How can a student, we can start our journey as a filmmaker, documentary filmmaker?
I would very, very strongly urge whichever, and I've been invited. Monday, I was doing, Monday, Tuesday, I was doing a workshop long distance with students in Kashmir University. And wherever I go, wherever I get to speak, I keep telling every student this thing, that please don't wait for graduation day to start your work. You start making your films or photo projects, whatever you are being trained in, whatever you're interested in, you start doing them right now. You assume that once you're fully trained, that is the time. That is the wrong approach, because this is the way you learn stuff. This is the chance. You have so many people around you as students to bounce off ideas, and so many people to help you make your film. You may have idea as a script writer, somebody else has an idea as a cameraman or a skill as a cameraman, somebody wants to become a director, somebody wants to become a anchor or a person in front of the camera, somebody wants to become a model, somebody wants to become something else. You can use all these people to collectively create a piece of work which will serve the interest of each of those people. Tomorrow a cameraman, a student comes out of the institute and he wants to become a DOP, a cameraman, a cinematographer. He'll not have a show reel to share, he'll have some class exercises. But if he has a film like this, he can share it with people and they may hire him for that reason. It might not be great stuff, but they can see that, okay, this guy is really driven to do this work. So a camera assistant job may come to you because of that, and that works with every position. So go out and make it right now. We saw the very first film we watched, Mike Pandey's Shores of Silence, for example, which got the greatest or the most important, prominent conservation cinema award, made with a camera which is far, far, far inferior to the camera which you have on your mobile phone. So it's not holding you back there. Try to do it, think through it a little bit, try to get people to collaborate with you, because one-man jobs are not so great, and make something and you can do it right away. There's nothing wrong with that. You go right ahead and do it. Figure out your story, figure out your treatment idea. If you are trying to figure out what would be a creative approach, look through internet, go on YouTube, for example. You'll find lots of, you have idea to make a film, say about a cabbie, a taxi driver right now. There are lots of films about that. You want to make a movie about some tribal festival, you'll find lots of wonderful films. And you'll find a lot of free master classes also on YouTube and Vimeo, all these places. So take advantage of that. Look through stuff, what good work people have done, how they managed to do it. And you can do it too and have the biggest ambition, for your film. Unfortunately, in India, all of us, for whatever reasons, we have very, very small ambitions. We are happy as a student, you make a film that, it gets shown here in some local Delhi award college festival. But you have to think big. Your film has to click with the festival in Kerala. It should click with the festival in Poland. It should go to Oscar Awards. They have a Student Academy Awards also. In fact, I remember seeing there's this student a long time back from Ajmer. He had made a small movie in Pushkar that was nominated for that Student Academy Award, And so it is possible to do that. It has to be out there. And if you want, look at the student work which all the great filmmakers made. When I was in NYU, we had in a library all the films made by all these great filmmakers, Martin Scorsese's film, Spike Lee's film, as students, what they did and so on. And it's really inspiring to see that, there's all these technical issues are there. They're a little amateurish, but the idea, the core idea is very, very solid. And that's how you go forward. So please, try to work on your projects right now. Don't wait for this. You think you will do it later, but it gets harder as you go along. And once you get old, all of that, so it's going to get harder. So try to do the stuff right now while you're still in the institute and you have so many people, you have wonderful faculty to give you feedback. All of that is a very valuable thing, So take advantage of that. And yes, when you're sending the films out, lot of festivals worldwide, they have discounts or break. They give you free, no fee if it's a student, this thing. There are a lot of student grants also, a student filmmaker, photographers. So you can take those, look out for them and get onto that, So that's something you can do. I mean, I think of it, I cannot do that. If I send it somewhere, I have to pay for it. And a lot of
you are not audible
to me, So please take advantage of that and get cracking right now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I'll hand over to Khushi to take it forward.
Okay.
Now I invite Professor Dr. Sushmita Bala, Head DME Media School, Delhi Metropolitan Education, and Chief Associate Convener ICANN 4 to give the concluding remarks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Kushi. Thank you, Mr. Vijay S. Jodha, for sharing your time and sparing your time with us and showcasing your project, your work. It's very interesting and it could have been inspiring for our students. So thank you for joining and thanks to all of you who are present here. Thank you, Kushi.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Now I would like to invite Ms. Shruti VS for the vote of thanks.
Thank you. I extend my heartiest gratitude to Vijay sir. He has been coordinating and for giving us the time and sharing this wonderful masterclass. I'm sure all the students, all participants have got a great food for thought, and the coming and upcoming our budding filmmakers can take note and they can get ahead. Additionally, I would also like to thank Professor Abhish Saxena, Dean DME Media School, and convener for ICANN 4, and our Sushmita Bala ma'am, who is our HOD, and the Chief Associate Convener at ICANN 4. I would also like to thank my colleagues at DME Media School, especially Dr. Manasvi and Ms. Manmeet Kaur, Associate Conveners ICANN 4, Dr. Teenam for her support, and our wonderful anchor for this afternoon, Khushi, for the smooth conduct and the smooth anchoring of the session. Last but not the least, I thank our digital team, Mr. Ritik Ghosh, Mr. Sumantra Das, Mr. Sachin Nair, and Mr. Yogesh. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this.
Thank you, ma'am. Please note that a recorded version of the masterclass will be available on our DME TV. Dear participants, don't forget to drop your valuable feedback on the link posted in the chat box. See you all for the today's evening panel discussion chaired by Dr. Jatin Srivastav, Associate Professor, Ohio University at 6 p.m. on People on Zoom, Social Implications of Online Learning. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.